Clayton Douglas gripped the steering wheel of his rental car, his knuckles whitening as he navigated through Boston's familiar streets. The muscles in his jaw tightened as he processed everything he'd witnessed during his year with Doctors Without Borders. The images of broken bodies and desperate faces remained seared into his memory, but it was the trafficking operation that truly haunted him. The way they'd moved people like cattle, using the chaos of war as cover. It made his blood boil. His friend Marco's face flashed in his mind. Marco Haney had been more than just a colleague. He'd been the first to notice the patterns, the first to realize something wasn't right about certain refugee transports. Now Marco was dead, his body discovered in a ditch outside their camp, and Clayton was the only one left who knew the truth. The conversation with Gary Avery, their local fixer, replayed in his mind. They'd been huddled in the supply tent, speaking in whispers while pretending to inventory medical supplies. "Someone inside the mission is compromised," Gary had said, his voice barely audible over the hum of generators. "The traffickers have people everywhere." Marco got too close, started asking too many questions. "You need to be careful, Clayton." Clayton had leaned closer, his military instincts screaming danger. "Who? Give me names." "I don't know, but—" Gary's words were cut short by the first explosion. The attack that followed had seemed random, but Clayton knew better now. He'd survived 3 weeks in the wilderness, helping villagers while trying to make contact with his organization. Those weeks had given him time to think, to piece together the puzzle. Now, as he turned onto his street, anticipation built in his chest. He'd missed Christy and Jason desperately. The thought of holding his wife again, of seeing how much their 14-year-old son had grown, it was what had kept him going through the darkest moments. He parked the car and grabbed his worn backpack from the passenger seat. The weight of his combat knife, carefully concealed in a hidden compartment, pressed against his back, a habit from his SEAL days he'd never quite shaken. The familiar sensation brought comfort as he walked up the path to his house. The front door burst open before he reached it. Jason exploded out, his teenage face contorted with fear. Clayton's son had grown taller, but right now he looked small, vulnerable. "Dad, run." Jason's voice cracked with urgency. "Mom's new boyfriend is here. He's the detective who ruled your disappearance a cold case. They planned it together. I found the burner phones. They're coming for you now to finish the job." Clayton's SEAL training kicked in instantly. He moved, grabbing Jason and pulling him behind the neighbor's thick hedge. His son's body trembled against him, but Clayton's mind was crystal clear, every sense heightened. The front door opened again. Clayton held Jason still, both of them watching through gaps in the foliage as Christy emerged with a man Clayton didn't recognize. Both held handguns with the casual comfort of people familiar with weapons. "He has to be close," the man was saying, his voice carrying the authoritative tone of law enforcement. The airport confirmed he landed. "This time, we finish it properly." Christy nodded, her face set with determination. "The insurance money's already spent, Sean. We can't let him ruin everything now." Clayton studied his wife's face, noting how different she looked. The warm, loving expression he remembered had been replaced by something harder, colder. The woman he'd married, the mother of his child, was gone. Or perhaps had never really existed. "How long?" Clayton whispered to Jason, his voice barely audible. "They got together before you left," Jason replied, his voice shaking. "I didn't know then, but I found evidence. Mom helped him identify targets through her insurance work. You weren't the first, Dad." Clayton's muscles coiled with controlled rage. The pieces were falling into place. His random deployment location, the compromised mission, the attack that was supposed to kill him. It hadn't been chance. It had been orchestrated. He watched as Sean and Christy moved down the street, weapons partially concealed but ready. Their movements were coordinated, professional. This wasn't their first hunt. "Tell me everything," Clayton commanded softly, his tactical mind already formulating plans. Jason swallowed hard. "I found a box in Mom's closet last week. It had burner phones, offshore account numbers, and files on other people who disappeared. All cases Detective Cochran ruled cold. They used your humanitarian mission as cover. The attack on your camp wasn't random. How did you find out about the phones?" "I write code, develop some apps. When I found the phones, I managed to hack into them. They've been planning this for months, Dad. Detective Cochran specializes in making people disappear. He uses his position to cover everything up. You were supposed to be his masterpiece. The perfect disappearance in a war zone. Clayton's expression hardened. The betrayal cut deep, but rage was more useful than pain. He'd learned that lesson well in the SEALs. What about the insurance money? $5 million, Jason said. They've hidden it in offshore accounts. Mom's good at moving money around. She's been helping Detective Cochran launder funds for years. Movement down the street caught Clayton's attention. Sean and Christy were checking yards, moving house by house. Their search pattern was efficient, professional. Clayton pulled out his phone, keeping it close to his body to minimize the screen's glow. Any allies? One, Jason said. Angel Ramos. He never believed you were dead. He's been watching out for me, teaching me things. I sent him an emergency text before I ran out. Clayton nodded, remembering his fellow veteran. Angel had served with him, understood how he thought. That could be crucial in the coming days. They won't stop hunting us, Clayton said, his voice cold. You understand that, right? They can't afford to let either of us live now. Jason met his father's eyes, showing a maturity beyond his 14 years. I know. Mom's involved in something bigger, some kind of trafficking operation. I found encrypted files I couldn't fully crack, but there were massive money transfers, connections to international accounts. Clayton's jaw clenched. The trafficking operation he discovered overseas, and the one his wife was involved with, they had to be connected. It wasn't coincidence. A car turned onto their street, moving slowly with its lights off. Clayton recognized the driving pattern, Angel. But they couldn't move yet. Sean and Christy were too close. Your mother and her boyfriend made two mistakes, Clayton said, his voice carrying the deadly calm of a predator. They failed to kill me in that camp, and they underestimated you. We're going to make them regret both errors. Jason nodded, his fear gradually being replaced by determination. What's the plan? First, we survive tonight. Then we gather intel, build a case, and dismantle their entire operation. I've spent the last year treating the victims of people like them. Time to return the favor. Clayton watched Sean and Christy's search pattern, his mind already formulating strategies. They thought they were the hunters, but Clayton had learned plenty about being hunted during those 3 weeks in the wilderness. He'd emerged stronger, more ruthless, understanding that survival sometimes required embracing the darker sides of oneself. Angel's car passed by again, even slower. Clayton squeezed Jason's shoulder. When I give the signal, we move to the car. No hesitation, no looking back. Ready? Ready, Jason whispered, trust evident in his eyes. Clayton allowed himself one last look at Christy, not with longing, but with the cold evaluation of someone marking a target. The woman he'd loved was gone, replaced by a predator who had tried to have him killed. His expression hardened into granite. There would be no forgiveness. No mercy, only justice. The hunt was on, but not in the way Christy and Sean expected. They thought they were dealing with a humanitarian doctor, not remembering or perhaps never truly understanding that before he'd learned to heal, Clayton Douglas had been trained to kill. The night air carried the sound of Sean's frustrated voice. He couldn't have gotten far. We keep searching until we find him. Clayton's lips curved into a predatory smile. They wanted to play hunters? He'd show them what a real hunter could do. By the time he was done, they'd understand the deadly mistake they'd made in betraying him. But first, he needed to get his son to safety and link up with Angel. The real war was just beginning. Chapter 2. The Setup. Robin Morse paced in her small apartment, her nurse's shoes squeaking against the linoleum. Her hands shook as she read through the encrypted messages on her laptop one more time. The evidence was undeniable. Christy Douglas had been in contact with the trafficking operation months before Clayton's deployment. The attack on their medical camp hadn't been just about eliminating Clayton. It had been about destroying evidence. Evidence that he and Marco had collected, documenting the systematic abuse of refugee transportation networks. Evidence that could bring down an international criminal enterprise. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Need to meet. Urgent. See. Robin's heart raced. Clayton was alive. She'd suspected as much when the camp's local villagers reported treating a wounded American doctor during those 3 weeks he was missing. But confirmation was different than suspicion. She typed back, Cafe Nero, South End, 30 minutes. Come alone. The response was immediate. Not alone. Bringing my son. Robin gathered her files and drove to the cafe, choosing a corner table with a clear view of both exits. When Clayton entered with a teenage boy, she barely recognized her former colleague. The humanitarian doctor had been replaced by something harder, more dangerous. Robin, Clayton nodded, scanning the cafe. This is Jason. Dad trusts you, Jason said, studying her with intelligent eyes. You work together in the camp. Yes, Robin replied, sliding a USB drive across the table. And I've been gathering information since the attack. Your wife, Clayton. She's been working with them for years. Clayton's expression didn't change, but his eyes hardened. Tell me everything. Christy was their American connection, working with Detective Sean Cochran to launder money through insurance claims. They used legitimate humanitarian organizations as cover for trafficking operations. The attack on our camp wasn't random. They needed to destroy Marco's evidence and eliminate you because you were getting too close. How deep does it go? Clayton's voice was deadly calm. International, Robin said, her voice dropping to a whisper. They have people in law enforcement, immigration, humanitarian organizations. Detective Cochran isn't just corrupt. He's their cleanup specialist. When someone threatens the operation, they either disappear or die in random accidents. Jason pulled out his laptop, his fingers flying over the keys. The encrypted files I found on Mom's computer. They match the patterns you discovered? Robin nodded, impressed by the teenager's technical knowledge. Exactly. They use a sophisticated system of shell companies and fake insurance claims. Your mother's position as an insurance adjuster was perfect cover. She helped identify potential targets for Cochran. Wealthy individuals who could be made to disappear, their assets liquidated through fake claims. Clayton's jaw tightened. The attack on the camp. Walk me through it again. It was too precise, Robin said, remembering that chaotic night. They knew exactly where the evidence was kept, which buildings to hit first. Someone had given them detailed intelligence. And Marco? Clayton's voice carried a dangerous edge. He found a pattern in the refugee transportation manifests. Numbers that didn't add up, people who disappeared between checkpoints. He was going to report it to the UN Oversight Committee. Robin swallowed hard. They found his body the next morning. Jason looked up from his laptop. Dad, I've been cross-referencing Mom's files with Detective Cochran's cold cases. There's a pattern. 7 wealthy spouses vanished in the last 3 years. All cases he investigated and ruled cold. Clayton absorbed this information with deadly focus. How did they plan my disappearance? They used your humanitarian mission as cover, Robin explained. Christy and Cochran had been planning it for months. They knew the region was unstable, perfect for making someone disappear. The insurance policy was updated 2 weeks before your deployment. $5 million, Jason added. Double indemnity for death in a war zone. Clayton's expression turned predatory. They thought they could use my own humanitarian work against me. Turn my desire to help others into a weapon. There's more, Robin said, her voice trembling slightly. The trafficking operation, it's not just using refugee transportation. They're recruiting through schools, using events where Christy volunteers as a parent coordinator. Jason's face paled. The summer exchange program. That's why those 3 students never came back last year. Clayton's hands clenched into fists. They're using my wife's position, my reputation in the community, to facilitate human trafficking? Yes, Robin confirmed. Detective Cochran's position keeps investigations from getting too close. The school's been unknowingly serving as a recruitment ground. How did you discover all this? Clayton asked, his tactical mind assessing the information. After the attack, I started digging. Something felt wrong about how quickly Detective Cochran ruled your disappearance a cold case. I have contacts in various humanitarian organizations. We began comparing notes, finding patterns. Jason closed his laptop. We need to move. Mom and Detective Cochran have people watching the usual places. Clayton nodded. Angel's got a cabin outside the city. We'll set up there, start building our case. Be careful, Robin warned. These people, they've killed to protect their operation. They won't hesitate to do it again. I'm counting on it. Clayton's voice carried absolute certainty. They think I'm still the same person who left a year ago, a doctor focused on healing. They forgot what I was before that. A SEAL, Robin remembered. One of the best, according to Marco. They wanted to play a game, Clayton said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Used my humanitarian work as cover for their operation, tried to have me killed in a war zone. Now they'll learn what happens when you target the wrong person. Jason looked at his father with a mixture of fear and admiration. What's our next move? We gather intel, build our case, and dismantle their entire operation, Clayton said. But first, we make sure they can't hurt anyone else. Robin, can you get word to your contacts? We need to shut down their recruitment operations immediately. I'll contact everyone I trust, Robin promised. But Clayton, be careful. Christie and Cochran, they're not just criminals. They're predators. Clayton's smile held no warmth. So am I. They're about to learn the difference between hunting innocent people and hunting someone who hunts back. As they left the cafe, Robin watched Clayton and Jason disappear into the night. She'd known Clayton as a dedicated doctor, committed to healing. Now she saw what lay beneath that humanitarian exterior, a warrior who'd found a cause worthy of his darker skills. The hunt was about to begin, and Robin almost pitted Christie and Cochran. Almost. They'd chosen their path, used humanitarian work as cover for their crimes, betrayed everything Clayton stood for. Now they would face the consequences of targeting a man trained in the art of warfare. The predators were about to become prey, and Clayton Douglas was going to teach them the true meaning of fear. Chapter 3. The Night Unravels. The soft blue glow of computer screens illuminated Jason's face as his fingers flew across the keyboard. He sat in Angel Ramos's cabin, surrounded by monitors displaying encrypted communications and financial records. The past week of setup had transformed the rustic space into a high-tech command center. Found another one, Jason said, his voice tight with concentration. Mom authorized a life insurance policy for Maria Chun 3 months ago. She disappeared 2 weeks later during a business trip to Eastern Europe. Angel Ramos, his father's former teammate, looked over Jason's shoulder. The ex-military man's face hardened as he studied the details. Let me guess, Detective Cochran ruled it a cold case? Within 48 hours, Jason confirmed. The policy paid out $2 million to her business partner, who transferred the money to an offshore account the same day. Clayton emerged from the cabin's back room, where he'd been cleaning his weapons. His face was a mask of controlled fury as he processed the information. The number of victims keeps growing, Clayton said, his voice cold. How many more files in your mother's system? Dozens, Jason replied, pulling up more documents. But there's something else. I found an encrypted folder labeled School Events. The files inside. His voice trailed off. Angel moved closer, his military training evident in his precise movements. Show us. Jason opened several files, revealing spreadsheets and documents. Mom coordinates parent volunteer events at my school. These lists, they're student profiles. Detailed information about family situations, travel patterns, vulnerabilities. Clayton's expression darkened further. They're using the school as a hunting ground. It gets worse, Jason said, opening another file. I think my school counselor, Ms. Murray, is involved somehow. She's been asking weird questions lately, especially about students who travel internationally. Melinda Murray? Angel asked, making notes. How long has she been at the school? Started this year, Jason said. Right after 3 students from the summer exchange program disappeared, Clayton and Angel exchanged significant looks. We need to know more about her, Clayton decided. Angel, can you run a background check? Already on it, Angel replied, moving to another computer. But we need to be careful. If she's part of their operation, any inquiry might alert them. Jason continued working, his screens filling with data. I found something else in Mom's closet besides the burner phones. There was a box with detailed plans about your disappearance, Dad. Lists of offshore accounts where they've hidden the insurance money. Clayton leaned over his son's shoulder, studying the financial trails. How did you find all this? I was looking for my gaming headset, Jason admitted. But when I found the box, I knew something was wrong. The burner phones, the documents, it was like something out of a crime movie. So I started digging. You took a huge risk, Clayton said, his voice carrying both pride and concern. I had to, Jason replied, meeting his father's eyes. They were planning to kill you. Again. Angel's computer pinged. Got something on Murray. Her credentials are perfect, too perfect. Every reference, every background detail checks out exactly right. False identity? Clayton asked. A level 1. Angel confirmed. This isn't amateur work. Whoever created this background had serious resources. Jason pulled up more files. Look at this. Mom's been making regular deposits to an account in the Cayman Islands. The amounts match withdrawals from Sean Cochran's private account. Money laundering, Clayton nodded. They're moving funds from their disappeared victims through multiple accounts. Dad, Jason's voice suddenly became urgent. There's an email here from today. They're planning something at school tomorrow. Some kind of special career counseling session for selected students. Clayton's military training kicked in immediately. They're accelerating their timeline. How many students? 12 names on the list, Jason said, scanning the document. All from wealthy families. All with some kind of family issues that make them vulnerable. They're getting desperate, Angel observed. Making mistakes. Because we're still alive, Clayton said grimly. We've disrupted their perfect operation. Now they need to move their current targets before we can expose them. A soft beep from one of the security monitors drew their attention. Angel moved to check it, his movements silent despite his size. Motion sensor triggered on the perimeter. Could be animals. Or not, Clayton finished, already moving. He killed the cabin's lights in one smooth motion. Jason, secure the data. Angel, west side. I'll take east. Jason's fingers flew over the keyboard, initiating encryption protocols he designed himself. The screens went dark one by one, leaving only the faint glow of security monitors. Through the cabin's reinforced windows, headlights became visible on the distant access road. Clayton checked his weapon with practiced efficiency. Jason, panic room. Now. But Dad. Now. Clayton's voice left no room for argument. Angel and I have got this. You're too important. You're the only one who can decrypt those files. Jason nodded reluctantly, gathering his most crucial hard drives. He moved to a concealed door in the cabin's floor. Angel's paranoia had proven useful in more ways than one. Keep your phone on silent, Clayton instructed. If anything happens to us, contact Robin. She'll know what to do with the evidence. As Jason disappeared into the hidden room, Clayton positioned himself with a clear view of the approaching vehicle. His mind was cold, focused. If Christy and Sean had found them, they were about to learn what it meant to face a seal on his own hunting ground. Angel's voice came through their encrypted radio. Single vehicle, moving slow. Professional approach pattern. Identified. Clayton kept his voice low. Negative. But they know what they're doing. Military or law enforcement training. Clayton's grip tightened on his weapon. If it's them, we take them alive. They need to stand trial for what they've done to all those families. Understood, Angel replied. But if they force our hand, then they'll learn why we were called SEALs, Clayton finished grimly. We're the ones who hunt in the dark. The approaching vehicle killed its lights, moving the last quarter mile in darkness. Clayton's training kicked in fully, heartbeat steady, breathing controlled, senses hyper-alert. If his wife and her detective boyfriend wanted to play hunters, he'd show them what a real predator looked like. In the darkness of the cabin, Clayton Douglas waited, a warrior ready for battle. The humanitarian doctor was gone, replaced by the SEAL who'd spent years hunting America's enemies. Christy had forgotten this side of him existed. Sean had never known it existed. They were about to learn their mistake. The hard way. Chapter 4. Building the Case. Randy Whitney hunched over his laptop in the dimly lit basement of Angel's cabin, his fingers trembling slightly as he accessed the backdoor he'd built into Sean Cochran's communication systems. The tech expert had spent years helping the detective secure his criminal enterprise, but he'd always known this day might come. Show me everything, Clayton Douglas commanded, his presence radiating controlled violence even in stillness. Cochran trusted me to build his entire communication infrastructure, Randy explained, typing rapidly. What he didn't know was that I kept away in insurance, you know? In case he ever tried to make me disappear like the others. Jason leaned forward, studying the screens with intense focus. These encryption protocols, they're similar to what I found on Mom's burner phones. Randy nodded. I designed both systems. Your mother handled the financial side, tracking potential targets and managing the money laundering. Cochran handled the disappearances. Clayton's expression hardened. How many victims? That I know of? At least 15 in the past 3 years. But there could be more. Randy pulled up a series of encrypted files. Each victim followed the same pattern. Wealthy, vulnerable, usually with substantial life insurance policies. Your wife would identify them through her work, then pass the information to Cochran. Angel Ramos entered the room, followed by a muscular man with military bearing. Clayton, meet Travis McCann, former Delta Force. He's been training Cochran's security teams. Travis met Clayton's cold stare without flinching. I didn't know what they were really doing at first. Thought I was training private security for wealthy clients. By the time I figured it out, they had leverage over me. What changed? Clayton's voice carried deadly promise. They started targeting kids, Travis replied, his face tight with disgust, using schools as recruitment grounds for their trafficking operation. I couldn't be part of that. Clayton turned back to Randy. Show me everything you have on the school connection. Randy pulled up more files. They're clever. They use legitimate school events as cover. International exchange programs, summer camps, career counseling sessions. Your wife's position as a parent volunteer gives them access to student information. We'll need more than digital evidence, Angel said. We need someone who can help build a legal case. I know someone, Travis offered. Elizabeth Morrow, former prosecutor. She was forced to resign when she got too close to exposing their operation. She's been gathering evidence ever since, waiting for a chance to bring them down. Clayton nodded. Make contact. But first, I want to know about their security protocols. Safe house, escape route, every contingency plan you helped them create. Travis spread a map across the table. They have 3 main safe houses in the city. Here, here, and here. But their primary facility is outside town. An abandoned warehouse complex they use for processing their trafficking victims. Processing? Clayton's voice could have frozen hell. Temporary holding facility before transport, Travis explained, his disgust evident. They move people through in small groups, using legitimate shipping companies as cover. The whole operation is designed to look like normal commercial activity. Jason looked up from his laptop. I've got access to Mom's email server. She's been corresponding with someone named Carmen, Watts at First Boston Trust. Randy's eyes widened. Carmen Watts? She's their primary money launderer. High-ranking bank executive who helps them move funds through legitimate-looking insurance investments. Show me the money trail, Clayton ordered. For the next hour, they traced the complex web of financial transactions. Jason's technical skills complemented Randy's inside knowledge, allowing them to map the organization's entire financial structure. They're good, Randy admitted. Multiple layers of shell companies, cryptocurrency exchanges, legitimate-looking insurance claims. Your wife designed most of the financial architecture. She used my reputation, Clayton said, his voice deadly quiet. My humanitarian work. My connections. All to facilitate human trafficking. It gets worse, Travis added. They have people inside law enforcement, immigration, even humanitarian organizations. That's how they've stayed hidden so long. Angel's phone buzzed. Elizabeth Morrow's agreed to meet. She's bringing Diana Gray, former forensics expert who was forced out of the department after questioning some of Cochran's cases. Clayton studied the map, his tactical mind processing everything. Randy, I want complete access to their communication systems. Travis, detail every security protocol you implemented. Jason, keep digging through those emails. Angel, set up the meeting with Morrow and Gray. What's our endgame? Angel asked. Clayton's smile held no warmth. We're not just going to expose them. We're going to dismantle their entire operation. Safe house, bank account, corrupt official. By the time we're done, They'll have nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. They'll fight back, Travis warned. They have resources, trained personnel. Good, Clayton replied, his voice carrying absolute certainty. Let them come. They think they're predators? I'll show them what a real predator looks like. Randy watched Clayton with a mixture of fear and admiration. The man's transformation from humanitarian doctor to ruthless hunter was terrifying to witness. The criminals who had tried to kill him, who had used his humanitarian work as cover for their atrocities, had no idea what they'd awakened. One more thing, Travis added. There's another player you should know about. Jerome Finley, Cochran's partner. He's been playing both sides, gathering evidence while pretending to be corrupt. Clayton's expression remained unchanged. Can he be trusted? He's been building a case for years, Travis confirmed, waiting for the right moment to move. Your return might be the catalyst we need. Set up a secure meeting, Clayton ordered. It's time to synchronize our efforts. Randy, I want complete surveillance on Christie and Cochran's communications. Phone call, email, text. I want to know what they're planning before they do. Jason looked up from his computer. Dad, I think I found something. Mom's been accessing files about international shipping routes, focusing on ports with minimal security oversight. Their transport network, Travis explained. They move people through commercial shipping lanes, hidden among legitimate cargo. Clayton's jaw tightened. How many people have they trafficked this way? Hundreds, Randy admitted. Maybe more. The school recruitment program was their newest innovation. Using parent volunteers and school events as cover gave them access to vulnerable kids from wealthy families. Not anymore, Clayton stated with finality. We're shutting them down. All of it. The trafficking, the murders, the money laundering. And when we're done, Christie and Cochran will spend the rest of their lives in prison, thinking about their mistakes. Angel studied his friend's face. The humanitarian doctor who'd left for Doctors Without Borders was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. Christie and Cochran had believed they were eliminating a potential threat. Instead, they'd created their worst nightmare, a highly trained warrior with nothing left to lose and every reason to seek justice. The hunt was about to begin in earnest, and Angel almost pitted their targets. Almost. They'd chosen their path, used humanitarian work as cover for their crimes, betrayed everything Clayton stood for. Now they would face the consequences of their actions, delivered by a man who'd been trained in the art of warfare long before he'd learned to heal. Chapter 5. The Predator Becomes Prey. Carmen Watts sat in her corner office at First Boston Trust, reviewing the latest batch of insurance investments when her computer screen suddenly went black. Numbers flashed across the display, account balances, transaction records, offshore transfers. Her own meticulous records of every dollar she'd helped Christy Douglas and Sean Cochran launder. The phone on her desk rang. She answered with trembling fingers. Ms. Watts. The male voice carried quiet authority. My name is Clayton Douglas. You've been helping my wife launder money from human trafficking and murder. I don't know what you're talking about, she attempted, her voice betraying her fear. Really? Should we discuss the Wilson account? Or perhaps Mrs. Chin's life insurance payout? My son is quite good with computers. He's currently accessing your private server. Carmen's second monitor lit up, displaying her most encrypted files. What do you want? Everything, Clayton replied. Names, accounts, contacts. You're going to help us dismantle their entire financial network. They'll kill me. They'll try. Clayton's voice hardened. But right now, I'm the predator you should fear. You have two choices. Help us voluntarily, or we send everything we found to the FBI, Interpol, and financial regulator in the world. Carmen's survival instincts kicked in. What kind of help? Track their money. Transaction. Account. I want to know where they're vulnerable. They use a cryptocurrency network for their main operations, Carmen explained. It's nearly impossible to trace. Nearly impossible isn't the same as impossible. Another voice joined the call. I'm Jason Douglas. I've been studying their blockchain patterns. With your inside knowledge, we can track everything. For the next hour, Carmen provided details about the financial architecture she'd helped build. Each revelation made her more valuable and more vulnerable. They're getting nervous, she admitted. Your survival complicated everything. They're moving money faster, making mistakes. Good, Clayton replied. Keep tracking them. Report any unusual movements. And Carmen? Don't try to warn them. You won't like the consequences. After the call ended, Carmen sat in her office, realizing she just betrayed some of the most dangerous people she knew. But the cold certainty in Clayton Douglas's voice suggested she'd chosen the lesser evil. Across town, Israel Gilmore, a cybersecurity expert recommended by Randy Whitney, worked with Jason to create a program tracking the organization's cryptocurrency movements. Their system is sophisticated, Israel noted, studying the code. But they never expected someone with your skills to target them specifically. Jason's fingers flew across the keyboard. Mom taught me about insurance and financial systems. She just didn't expect me to use that knowledge against her. There, Israel pointed at the screen. They're moving funds between these wallets. If we can identify the pattern, we can freeze their assets, Jason finished. Cut off their operating funds. Clayton watched the technological warfare unfold, his expression granite. How long until we can start hitting their accounts? A few days to map everything, Israel replied. But once we do, we can strangle their financial supply lines systematically. The cabin's door opened as Angel entered with Detective Jerome Finley. The detective looked exhausted, his face showing the strain of years spent playing a role. Cochran's getting desperate, Finley reported. Internal Affairs is asking questions about his old cases. Other officers are starting to talk. Good, Clayton nodded. What else? He's selling assets, moving money. He knows something's coming, but he can't figure out how you're doing it. What about Christy? She's trying to access emergency accounts, but they're finding them frozen or emptied. Your son's work, I assume? Jason didn't look up from his computer. Mom taught me to be thorough. Diana Gray arrived next, carrying files from her years investigating Cochran. I've analyzed the forensic evidence from his cold cases. The patterns are identical, including how he staged your death in that war zone. Clayton studied the forensics expert's findings. Each page revealed more about how Sean and Christy had orchestrated similar disappearances, using the same techniques that had failed to kill him. Show me the evidence trail, he commanded. Diana spread photos and documents across the table. He's methodical. Each victim was made to disappear in a way that seemed natural for their circumstances. But the patterns are there if you know where to look. Like staging Clayton's death during a humanitarian mission, Angel observed. Exactly, Diana confirmed. They used his work as cover, just like they used other victims' business trips or vacations. But they got sloppy with Clayton. They didn't expect him to survive, didn't expect his son to uncover their evidence. Clayton's phone buzzed, a message from Carmen Watts. They're moving money again. Large transfers to new accounts. Jason tracked the movements on his screen. Got them. They're trying to establish new shell companies, but we're flagging each transaction. Their whole system is failing, Israel added. Every account they open, every transfer they make. We're there first. Angel checked his phone. Our surveillance teams report they're fighting. Christie's blaming Sean for losing control of the situation. Let them fight. Clayton's voice carried deadly satisfaction. The pressure's only going to increase. Diana studied more forensic reports. Other officers are coming forward, questioning Cochran's old cases. His protection inside the department is crumbling. What about the school operation? Clayton asked. Shut down, Angel confirmed. We've flagged event, program they used for recruitment. They can't move anyone without us knowing. Clayton allowed himself a small, predatory smile. His wife and her detective boyfriend had thought themselves clever predators, using his humanitarian work as cover for their crimes. Now they were learning what it meant to be hunted by someone trained in warfare. Dad, Jason called urgently. They're accessing files about your time in the war zone. Looking for something specific. Clayton moved to his son's computer, studying the search patterns. They're desperate for leverage. Keep watching their communications. They'll make a bigger mistake soon. The team worked through the night, tracking money movements, documenting evidence, and watching their targets increasing desperation. Sean and Christy had built their criminal empire on the appearance of legitimacy, using Clayton's reputation and Cochran's position to hide their true activities. Now that empire was crumbling, piece by piece, destroyed by the very man they'd failed to kill. The predators were becoming prey, and Clayton Douglas was proving to be a ruthless hunter. Chapter 6. The Trap Titans. Clayton orchestrated the final phase of his plan from Angel's reinforced cabin, each element falling into price. Screens around him displayed live feeds of Sean and Christie's movements, their desperation growing more evident by the hour. The humanitarian contacts delivered, Angel reported, sliding a thick folder across the table. Fabricated evidence suggesting you uncovered their international trafficking operation during those 3 weeks you were missing. Professional work. Looks completely authentic. Clayton examined the documents with clinical detachment. Their reaction? Exactly as predicted, Jason answered from his monitoring station. Mom and Sean have accessed the files 6 times in the last hour. They're panicking, trying to determine what evidence you might have. Elizabeth Morrow, the former prosecutor, studied the surveillance feeds. They're making mistakes. Sloppy ones. The kind that get noticed. Sean's protection in the department is crumbling, Diana Gray added, adjusting her monitoring equipment. 3 senior officers have already approached internal affairs about his suspicious case files. Randy Whitney's voice came through the secure communication channel. Their encrypted channels are lighting up. Want to hear their latest conversation? Play it, Clayton commanded. The room filled with Sean's agitated voice. Everything's falling apart. The school program, our accounts, our contacts. He's destroying it all. You promised me he was dead. Christie's voice cracked with fury. You said no one could survive in that territory. He shouldn't have survived. No one survives 3 weeks out there alone. Well, he did survive, and now he's systematically dismantling everything we built. What's your brilliant plan now? Clayton's expression remained carved from stone as he listened to his wife's voice. The woman who'd helped orchestrate his attempted murder, who'd used his humanitarian work as cover for trafficking operations, was finally showing her true nature. They're trying to access their emergency funds, Israel Gilmore reported from his cryptocurrency tracking station. But our program is blocking them at every turn. Jason's code is predicting their moves before they make them. Travis McCann, studying their security patterns, nodded in approval. They're falling back on predictable protocols, making amateur mistakes. Carmen Watts reports they've attempted to open 6 new accounts in the past hour, Jason added. All frozen before they could transfer any funds. Clayton turned to Diana. The cabin? Located, she confirmed, pulling up satellite imagery. Remote property owned through a shell company. Records show extensive modifications. Reinforced walls, hidden rooms, professional security systems. They're killing ground, Angel said quietly. Where the other victims disappeared, Clayton studied the property layouts. That's where they'll run when everything else fails. Their last refuge. Dad, Jason called urgently. New encrypted communication. They're talking about using me as bait. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as Clayton absorbed this information. Their final mistake. Elizabeth reviewed more files. The evidence we've gathered is overwhelming. Financial records, forensic data, witness statements. Everything backed up and distributed to secure locations. They're mobilizing, Diana reported, watching the feeds. Sean's cleaning out his office at the precinct. Christie's packing essentials at home. Clayton's expression showed lethal satisfaction. Let them run to their sanctuary. Let them think they're in control. Travis examined the cabin's security specs. We've mapped entrance, escape route. They won't be able to move without us knowing. The surveillance equipment? Clayton asked. Every room covered, Diana confirmed. Audio and video, feeding directly to our secure servers. When they arrive, word they say will be recorded. Angel checked his tactical gear. Your son's monitoring program is tracking their phones, their cars, their financial transactions. They can't make a move without us seeing it. Clayton watched the monitors showing Sean and Christie's increasingly desperate activities. They were cornered predators now, dangerous but predictable. Their criminal empire was in ruins, their allies turning against them, their resources cut off. Status report, he commanded. Internal Affairs has opened formal investigations into 12 of Sean's cold cases, Elizabeth reported. Their cryptocurrency accounts are frozen, Israel added. School boards suspended all programs connected to their recruitment operation, Jason said. Surveillance teams report increased agitation, Diana noted. They're fighting more frequently, blaming each other for the situation. Clayton absorbed each report with cold satisfaction. They used everything I built, Clayton said, his voice carrying deadly purpose. My reputation, my humanitarian work, my family name, all to facilitate their trafficking operation. They're about to learn the cost of that decision. The team continued their relentless surveillance as night approached. Clayton Douglas, the man who'd survived their assassination attempt and returned to dismantle their criminal empire, waited patiently. The trap was set. The hunters were about to become the prey. Each team member understood their role in the coming endgame. They'd watched Clayton systematically destroy everything Sean and Christy had built, their trafficking operation, their money laundering schemes, their professional reputations. Now, all that remained was to spring the final trap. The cabin's monitors showed Sean and Christy's frantic preparations for escape. They thought they were running to safety, to their secret sanctuary where they disposed of so many victims. They had no idea they were walking into a trap of Clayton's design. Chapter 7. The Last Stand. FBI Special Agent Juana Butler studied the array of surveillance monitors displaying every angle of Sean Cochran's remote property. Her tactical team had spent weeks preparing for this moment, guided by Clayton Douglas's meticulous planning. Target vehicles approaching, a team member reported. 2 heat signatures in the lead car. Confirmation on subjects? Butler demanded. Facial recognition positive. Diana Gray replied from her station. Sean Cochran driving, Christy Douglas passenger side. Both armed. Clayton Douglas stood motionless, watching the monitors with predatory focus. His tactical gear reflected his military background. Practical, well-worn, nothing for show. Status update, he commanded. All systems operational, Jason reported, fingers moving across his keyboard. Their phones are compromised. Communications intercepted. Every security camera and sensor in the cabin is under our control. Angel Ramos checked his tactical radio. FBI teams in position on all approach vectors. No escape routes uncovered. Sean's black SUV pulled onto the property, headlights cutting through the darkness. Through high-definition cameras, they watched him perform an amateur's version of a security sweep. He's getting sloppy, Angel observed, rushing his checks. Feared as that, Clayton replied, his voice carrying no emotion. They know they're running out of options. Inside the car, Sean gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. The boy's phone signal is close. Once we have him, Clayton will have to come to us. Like he came to us in that war zone? Christy's bitter laugh crackled through their compromised phones. That worked out well. Shut up, Sean snarled. This time we finish it. No witnesses, no evidence, no body to find. Just like all the others, Diana adjusted her recording equipment. Getting everything, Agent Butler. Multiple references to previous murders. Keep them talking, Butler ordered. We need specifics for the prosecution. Clayton checked his weapons with practiced efficiency. Each magazine loaded with live ammunition, unlike the blanks they'd replaced in Sean and Christy's guns. Jason, status of their security systems? Everything's compromised, his son confirmed. Camera, motion sensor, electronic lock. We control it all. They're blind and don't know it. Through the surveillance feeds, they watched Sean and Christy enter the cabin. Their movements betrayed their increasing panic. Quick, jerky motions lacking their usual calculated precision. This place is secure, Sean was saying, his voice tight. No one knows about it. No one can trace it. Like your other killing grounds? Christy paced nervously. How many bodies are buried on this property, Sean? How many spouses did we make disappear before Clayton? Focus, Sean snapped. Once we have the boy, Clayton comes alone. Then he joins the others. A tragic accident during a desperate father's search for his son. Clayton's expression hardened as he listened to them discuss using Jason as bait. Time to move. Angel, with me. Diana, maintain surveillance links. Jason, keep monitoring their communications. Clayton, Agent Butler called. We need them alive. Their testimony breaks open dozens of cold cases. They'll live, Clayton's voice carried deadly promise. But they're going to learn what it means to threaten my son. Inside the cabin, Sean's paranoia grew. Shadow held potential threats. Sound triggered his survival instincts. But his instincts were amateur compared to the predator hunting him. Something's wrong, he muttered, checking his phone again. The boy's signal hasn't moved. Because it's not real. Clayton's voice filled the cabin as every light went dark. Check your weapons, Sean. Both of you. Check your ammunition. The panic in Sean's movements was visible through infrared cameras as he ejected his magazine, finding it loaded with blanks. Christie's desperate attempt to reach her backup piece ended with the same discovery. How? Sean's voice cracked. This is impossible. No, Clayton replied, his voice coming from a different direction. Impossible was surviving 3 weeks in a war zone after your attack. Impossible was making it back to expose your operation. This is just preparation. Sean fired blindly toward Clayton's voice, the impotent click of the firing pin echoing through the cabin. His face contorted with fury as he realized how completely they'd been outmaneuvered. Clayton, Christie attempted, her voice taking on a pleading tone. You don't understand. Sean forced me. He threatened. Save it. Clayton cut her off. We have conversation recorded. Murder you planned together. Victim you identified through your insurance work. Every detail of how you used my humanitarian mission as cover for your crimes. Agent Butler's voice boomed through external speakers. Sean Cochran, Christy Douglas, you were surrounded by federal agents. Drop your weapons and surrender. Sean's tactical training, amateur compared to Clayton's, kicked in. He grabbed Christy, trying to use her as a shield. Back off. I'll kill her right here. Clayton's laugh held no warmth. The woman who helped you select victims? Who planned my murder? Try again, Sean, and check your backup piece before you make empty threats. We've had access to this cabin for weeks. The terror on Sean's face was clearly visible through the infrared feeds as he realized the depth of the trap. He shoved Christy aside and charged toward Clayton's voice, drawing a knife. The next sequence happened. Clayton emerged from the shadows, his movements fluid and lethal. Sean's knife attack was amateur hour compared to Clayton's SEAL training. A precise strike shattered the detective's wrist, sending him crashing to the floor. Christy bolted for the door but found Angel blocking her path. Her attempt to draw another weapon ended with her face down on the floor, restrained with professional efficiency. FBI agents swarmed the cabin, led by Agent Butler. Sean Cochran, Christy Douglas, you are under arrest for multiple counts of murder, conspiracy, human trafficking, and money laundering. Diana's voice came through the tactical radio. Evidence teams are moving in. We've located the hidden room with Sean's trophy collection. Files on every victim, going back years. The recordings are clear, Agent Butler stated, supervising the arrests. You detailed every murder, every trafficking operation, every piece of evidence you destroyed. A very comprehensive confession. Clayton stood over his restrained wife and her lover, his expression carved from stone. They had tried to use his humanitarian work as cover for their atrocities, had tried to murder him in a war zone, had threatened his son. How? Sean demanded through his pain. How did you do this? You forgot what I was before I became a doctor, Clayton replied, his voice devoid of emotion. I hunted people like you, predators who target the innocent. You tried to use my humanitarian work against me. That was your mistake. As federal agents led them away in handcuffs, Christy looked back at her husband. The man she'd betrayed, the man she tried to have killed, showed no trace of the compassionate doctor she'd married. In his place stood a warrior who'd reminded his enemies why they should have feared him. Undone by their own arrogance. They'd forgotten that before Clayton Douglas learned to heal, he'd been trained to hunt. It was a mistake they would have the rest of their lives in prison to regret. Chapter 8. Justice Served. The FBI's Boston field office hummed with activity as evidence teams processed the massive cache of information recovered from Sean Cochran's cabin. Agent Juana Butler stood before a wall of monitors displaying photos, documents, and financial records spanning years of criminal activity. The hidden room was a gold mine, Diana Gray reported, spreading forensic photographs across the conference table. Sean kept detailed records of every victim. Dates, methods, disposal sites, everything. Methodical, Clayton observed, studying the evidence. He documented his techniques, refined them with each murder. Your death was supposed to be his masterpiece, Elizabeth Morrow added, reviewing case files. Using your humanitarian work as cover, staging the attack during legitimate conflict. It was designed to be unquestionable. Jason looked up from his computer station. Mom's email archives confirm everything. She used her insurance position to identify vulnerable targets, people whose disappearance would look plausible. Agent Butler nodded toward the interrogation rooms. They're both talking, trying to cut deals, blaming each other. The recordings from the cabin destroyed any chance of denial. Through the observation window, Clayton watched his wife attempt to manipulate another federal agent. Her mask of victimhood kept slipping, revealing glimpses of the predator beneath. "Play the cabin recordings," he commanded. Diana activated the audio system. Sean and Christie's voices filled the room. The Martin case was sloppy, Christie's recorded voice said. "You rushed it. We still got paid," Sean replied. $5 million in life insurance, split 3 ways with the business partner. Clean. Clayton's policy was worth more. Double indemnity for death in a war zone. Plus, using his humanitarian work as cover was brilliant. No one questions aid workers dying in conflict areas. Agent Butler paused the playback. Their confessions are explicit. Multiple murders, conspiracy, evidence tampering. The trafficking operation details alone guarantee life sentences. Elizabeth Morrow spread more files across the table. "We've identified 7 previous victims. Wealthy spouses who disappeared during business trips or vacations. Christie processed all their life insurance claims. The trafficking operation used the same techniques," Travis McKinn added, joining them. "Legitimate travel as cover, corrupted officials smoothing the way, clean documentation hiding dirty crimes." Clayton's expression remained granite as he absorbed the details of his wife's crimes. "The school recruitment program?" "Shut down," Jason confirmed. "We've identified every student they targeted. International authorities are tracking the ones already moved through their system." Angel entered with more evidence bags. Sweep team found another cache in Sean's house. More victim files, offshore account numbers, details on trafficking routes. "They got cocky," Diana observed. "Started keeping trophies, detailed records. They thought their positions made them untouchable." Through the observation window, they watched Sean Cochran crack under interrogation. His attempts at bravado crumbled as agents presented evidence of each murder, each trafficking operation, each laundered dollar. "Full confession," Agent Butler reported, entering with fresh documents. "He's trying to trade information about other corrupt officials for consideration at sentencing." "Christie's doing the same," Elizabeth added. "She's offering details about their financial network, other conspirators we haven't identified yet." Clayton studied the growing evidence wall. Photo after photo of victims, people whose lives had been destroyed by his wife's greed and Sean's ambition. Each file represented a family torn apart, a life stolen. The Martin case was their first collaboration, Diana explained, highlighting key documents. Christie identified him through her insurance work. Sean staged the disappearance. They split the payout with the victim's business partner. It established their pattern, Elizabeth continued. Christie found wealthy targets with substantial life insurance. Sean engineered their disappearances. They laundered the money through shell companies and offshore accounts. Jason's computer pinged with an alert. More encrypted files decrypted from Mom's server. Complete lists of trafficking victims, transport routes, corrupt officials who facilitated everything. They documented their own destruction, Angel observed. Kept evidence of every crime. Thinking their positions protected them, Clayton moved to his son's station, reviewing the decrypted data. Each file revealed more about how thoroughly his wife had betrayed everything he stood for. How she'd used his humanitarian work as cover for trafficking operations that destroyed countless lives. "The prosecution is airtight," Agent Butler stated. Their recorded confessions in the cabin, Sean's trophy room, Christie's email archives, the financial records. Multiple witnesses coming forward now that they're in custody. plus forensic evidence from the cabin property, Diana added. Ground-penetrating radar identified multiple burial sites. Recovery teams are working now. Through the windows, they watched Sean and Christy crack under the weight of evidence. Their carefully constructed facades crumbled as they realized the depth of their exposure. Crime documented, every victim accounted for, every detail of their operation laid bare. What about the broader organization? Clayton asked. The trafficking network, the corrupt officials, the international connections? We're rolling them up now, Agent Butler confirmed. Sean and Christie's confessions gave us everything we needed. Safe houses, transport routes, financial networks. It's all coming down. Elizabeth reviewed more legal documents. Multiple jurisdictions are filing charges. The evidence connects to trafficking operations in 6 countries. International warrants are being issued. Clayton's expression showed no satisfaction, only cold finality as he watched his wife's tears turn to rage in the interrogation room. She'd thought herself a clever predator, using his reputation to hide her crimes. Now she was learning what it meant to face a real hunter. The predators who tried to kill him had been captured, their operation exposed, their crimes documented beyond any doubt. Justice was coming for every life they destroyed. And Clayton Douglas had been the instrument of their destruction. Chapter 9. A New Beginning. UN Special Investigator Geraldine Rhodes stood before the assembled International Task Force, presenting the sweeping reforms sparked by the Douglas case. The conference room at UN headquarters contained law enforcement officials from 12 countries, humanitarian organization leaders, and cybersecurity experts. The protocols developed from this case will revolutionize how we protect aid workers, Rhodes declared, gesturing to the comprehensive documentation displayed on screens. Clayton Douglas's experience has exposed critical vulnerabilities in our systems. Clayton sat beside his son Jason, both still carrying themselves with military alertness despite the formal setting. The father's expression remained stern as he reviewed the proposed changes, while Jason worked on his laptop, finalizing code for their new security application. The communication platform is ready for deployment, Jason announced, turning his screen to show Aurora Kinney, the brilliant young programmer who'd helped develop their secure system. We've integrated every security feature identified from the case. Aurora nodded, highlighting key features. Triple encrypted channels, biometric authentication, real-time threat detection. Aid workers can document and report criminal activities without compromising their safety or mission integrity. Diana Gray approached with fresh forensic reports. The new investigation protocols are already producing results. 3 similar trafficking operations identified in Eastern Europe, using the same techniques Sean and Christy employed. The task force model is being replicated globally, Elizabeth Morrow added, spreading legal documents across the table. Every jurisdiction we've shared it with has reported immediate improvements in detecting law enforcement corruption. Clayton reviewed the statistics with characteristic intensity. Show me the humanitarian mission security improvements. Angel Ramos pulled up detailed security protocols on the main screen. His new consulting firm had become the gold standard for protecting aid operations. Complete overhaul of vetting procedures. New physical security measures. Enhanced communication protocols. Nothing moves without multiple layers of verification. Marco's daughter delivered the final piece, Jason reported, gesturing to a young woman entering with an armored briefcase. The evidence he hid before they killed him. Sarah Haney approached the table, her father's determination evident in her bearing. He encoded the locations in my birthday cards, my childhood photos. He knew they were going to kill him, but he made sure the truth would come out. The briefcase contained detailed documentation of trafficking routes, corrupt officials, and financial networks spanning 3 continents. Marco Haney's meticulous work, combined with the evidence from Clayton's case, provided a roadmap for dismantling similar operations worldwide. Your father's sacrifice wasn't in vain, Clayton told her, his voice carrying rare warmth. His evidence will help us protect countless lives. Agent Juana Butler entered with news from the prosecution. Sean and Christie's trial dates are set. The evidence is insurmountable. Their recorded confessions in the cabin, combined with the financial records and forensic evidence, guarantee maximum sentences. The international warrants are being executed, Elizabeth added. 38 indictments so far, across 12 countries. Their entire network is being dismantled. Diana spread more files across the table. The new forensics unit is operational. We're reviewing cold cases globally, looking for patterns matching their methodology. 7 similar operations identified already. Clayton moved to Jason's workstation, studying the deployment data for their security app. How many organizations have implemented the system? 43 major aid groups, Jason replied, pulling up the statistics. Plus 15 governmental humanitarian organizations. The UN mandate goes into effect next month, requiring it for all sanctioned missions. Aurora highlighted the app's tracking features. Every aid worker has direct, secure channels to report criminal activity. Real-time monitoring identifies patterns of corruption or trafficking attempts before they can take root. Angel reviewed protection protocols with his tactical team. Complete overhaul of physical security measures. New vetting procedures for all personnel. Enhanced surveillance of known trafficking routes. The reforms go deeper than just security, Rhodes noted. We're implementing new training programs, psychological support systems, family protection protocols. Every lesson from your case is being applied to prevent similar infiltrations. Clayton studied the evidence of transformation around him. His wife and her lover had tried to use his humanitarian work as cover for their atrocities. Instead, they'd inspired systemic changes that would protect future aid workers and trafficking victims. We're ready for the next mission, Jason said quietly. All new protocols in place. Angel's team has secured the location. Clayton nodded, pride evident in his expression. His son had emerged from their ordeal not broken, but strengthened, understanding that real power came from protecting others, not exploiting them. The transport's ready, Angel reported. Complete security detail, encrypted communications, real-time monitoring. No one infiltrates our missions again. Clayton took a final look at the conference room. The evidence of their success surrounded them. New security systems, reformed protocols, enhanced protections for those who served others. They'd not only survived betrayal, but had built something stronger from its ashes. The humanitarian doctor had rediscovered his warrior's skills when needed, bringing down those who'd betrayed everything he stood for. Now he could return to healing, but with new safeguards protecting his mission. Ready? He asked Jason, who nodded with quiet confidence. Together, father and son headed for their next humanitarian mission. The predators who tried to destroy them were facing justice. Their criminal empire was dismantled, and in its place stood something better. New systems for protecting aid workers, new tools for fighting trafficking, new bonds of loyalty and trust. Evil had tried to use good as its cover. Instead, good had proven more ruthless, more determined, and ultimately more powerful. Clayton Douglas had made sure of that. His story wasn't just about survival or justice. It was about building something stronger from betrayal's ashes. The warrior-turned-doctor-turned-warrior had completed his circle, returning to humanitarian work with his son by his side. But now they moved with new purpose, new protections, and an unwavering commitment to ensuring that those who helped others would never again be so vulnerable to predators hiding behind masks of legitimacy. Epilogue. 10 years later, the Massachusetts Correctional Institution for Women maintained strict routines. In the maximum security wing, Christy Douglas occupied a sparse cell, her once polished appearance replaced by prison-issued clothing and graying hair. 10 years of incarceration had stripped away her sophisticated facade, leaving behind a bitter shell of the woman who'd once orchestrated murders through insurance fraud. Today marked her annual appeal hearing, though she held no real hope. The evidence Clayton had gathered, combined with her recorded confessions, had ensured her multiple life sentences would never be overturned. Inmate Douglas, the guard announced. Your attorney is here. Elizabeth Morrow, now heading the FBI's anti-trafficking task force, sat observing through the reinforced glass as Christy was led into the visitors area. She came every year to ensure all appeals were properly denied. Still trying to claim coercion? Elizabeth asked, reviewing the latest appeal documents. Save your mockery, Christy snapped, though her voice lacked its former authority. Where's Sean? Have you checked on him? Detective Cochran is exactly where he belongs, Elizabeth replied coldly. Maximum security at Walpole. The other inmates don't take kindly to corrupt cops who traffic children. Christie's facade cracked slightly. How many years now? 10 since your conviction. You've served a decade out of your multiple life sentences. Sean's serving his in solitary. Too many attempts on his life in general population. The former insurance adjuster who'd helped select murder victims stared at her hands. And Clayton? Dr. Douglas continues his humanitarian work, Elizabeth stated with satisfaction. His organization has saved thousands of lives. The security protocols he and Jason developed have prevented dozens of trafficking operations from infiltrating aid missions. Christie flinched at her son's name. Jason? Dr. Jason Douglas now. Graduated medical school last year, following in his father's footsteps. He also runs the cybersecurity firm that developed those protocols that helped catch you. The company consults for intelligence agencies worldwide. In his maximum security cell at Walpole, Sean Cochran sat alone, his once commanding presence diminished by years of isolation. The former detective who'd made people disappear had himself disappeared into the prison system, his only human contact being guards and occasional visits from investigators still unraveling cases he'd corrupted. The prison psychologist's notes detailed his deteriorating mental state. Subject exhibits increasing paranoia, convinced former victims are haunting him. Frequently speaks of Clayton Douglas, expressing both fear and obsession. Continues to claim he sees Douglas in the shadows of his cell. A guard delivered his daily mail. More subpoenas for testimony about old cases, more victims' families filing civil suits to claim what remained of his seized assets. His police pension had been revoked, his property confiscated, his reputation destroyed. Even his children had changed their names to escape his legacy. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of International Aid Security Consulting, Clayton Douglas reviewed mission protocols with his team. The years had added some gray to his temples, but hadn't diminished his commanding presence. If anything, successfully bringing down his wife's criminal empire had only enhanced his reputation. The new security system identified another attempt to infiltrate the Sudan mission, Jason reported, now a confident 24-year-old who'd combined his father's strength with his own technical brilliance. Trafficking operation trying to use aid work as cover, just like Mom and Sean did. Clayton nodded with grim satisfaction. Alert Agent Butler's team. Give them everything they need. Already done. FBI's moving in now. Jason pulled up more data on his screens. The protocols we developed from their case have prevented 14 similar attempts this year alone. Angel Ramos entered, still moving despite a decade past. Security teams are in position for the next mission. No one gets through our screening now. Clayton studied the mission briefing. In the decade since bringing down Christie and Sean's operation, he'd built something remarkable from the ashes of betrayal. His organization had become the gold standard for protecting humanitarian missions, combining his medical expertise with the warrior skills he'd recalled to destroy his wife's criminal empire. Update on Diana's cold case unit? Clayton asked. Solved 3 more cases this month, Angel replied. The evidence we gathered from Sean's files is still helping identify other corrupt officers. The task force model you inspired has been adopted by agencies worldwide. At Boston's FBI field office, Agent Juana Butler reviewed progress reports with Elizabeth Morrow. 10 years since the Douglas case, and we're still finding ripple effects, Butler noted. Every trafficking operation we dismantle seems to have some connection to their original network. Clayton's security protocols changed everything, Elizabeth agreed. No one can use humanitarian missions as cover anymore without getting caught. The screening systems Jason developed are too sophisticated. How's the appeal looking? Dead on arrival, Elizabeth smiled. Christie's getting desperate. Sean's completely broken. Spends his days in solitary, jumping at shadows. Justice served. Across town, Carmen Watts sat in her own prison cell, serving her reduced sentence for cooperation. Her testimony had helped unravel the financial networks, but she'd still earned 15 years for her role in laundering trafficking profits. The former bank executive who'd helped hide blood money now taught financial literacy to other inmates. Her skills turned to legitimate purposes. Her case had become a warning to other banking professionals tempted by criminal enterprises. At the UN's headquarters, Geraldine Rhodes presented the latest statistics to the Security Council. The Douglas Protocols, as we now call them, have revolutionized humanitarian mission security. In the past decade, attempted infiltrations by criminal organizations have dropped 90%. She displayed images of successful missions, aid workers protected by systems inspired by Clayton's experience. Dr. Douglas turned personal betrayal into global reform. His organization has trained security teams in 43 countries. In a Boston coffee shop, Sarah Haney met with Jason Douglas to discuss their ongoing work. Marco Haney's daughter had followed her father's legacy of exposing corruption, working with Jason's cybersecurity firm to protect humanitarian missions. "Dad would be proud," she said softly. "His evidence helped start all this. Your father turned it into something amazing." Jason nodded, remembering the terrified 14-year-old who discovered his mother's crimes. "We learned the hard way that evil people will use good works as cover. Now we make sure they can't." At his private office, Clayton reviewed photographs of recent missions. Images of medical teams working safely in conflict zones, protected by systems born from his pain. Pictures of his son treating patients while Angel's security teams stood guard. Proof that good could triumph through strength, not weakness. A news alert drew his attention. Another trafficking operation dismantled using his protocols. Another corrupt official exposed by systems inspired by his case. Another aid mission completed safely using security measures he'd helped design. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed him had instead forged something unbreakable. His wife and her lover had tried to use his humanitarian work as cover for their crimes. Now they sat in separate prisons, broken and alone, while he continued saving lives. In the maximum security wing at MCI Framingham, Christie returned to her cell after another failed appeal. The guards had long stopped seeing her as the sophisticated insurance executive she'd once been. Now she was just another lifer, growing old behind bars, forgotten by the world she'd preyed upon. Her cell walls held aloud photos, mostly news clippings about her son's achievements. Jason Douglas, the boy who'd exposed her crimes, now saved lives as both doctor and cybersecurity expert. She'd lost him forever, along with everything else. Her mandatory counseling sessions revealed the toll of her choices. Subject expresses recurring nightmares about Clayton Douglas emerging from war-zone shadows. Claims to see her victims in her dreams. Shows no genuine remorse, only regret at being caught. Continues to minimize her role despite overwhelming evidence. Sean faced his own demons in solitary confinement. The detective who'd ruled so many deaths as cold cases now lived as a ghost himself, confined to a concrete box for his protection from other inmates. His attempts to trade information for privileges had failed. Clayton's team had already exposed everything. Their criminal empire had crumbled to dust, but its destruction had built something lasting. The Douglas Protocols protected aid workers worldwide. The task force model inspired by their case caught other predators. The security systems born from betrayal saved countless lives. At the 10-year mark since justice was served, Clayton Douglas stood as living proof that good men could be ruthless when needed, that betrayal could forge strength instead of breaking it, that evil's attempts to hide behind noble works could be exposed and destroyed. He'd remained the warrior when necessary, the healer when possible, and had taught his son that same balance. Jason had emerged stronger from the crucible of his mother's crimes, combining Clayton's determination with his own brilliant mind to protect others. The price of betrayal had been high, but its consequences had reached far beyond prison cells. Christie and Sean's attempts to destroy Clayton had instead inspired global reforms. Their elaborate criminal enterprise had been dismantled and replaced by worldwide systems protecting humanitarian work. They'd thought themselves clever predators, using charitable works to hide their crimes. Instead, they'd awakened a more dangerous hunter, one who'd used their own methods to destroy them, then built something better from the wreckage. 10 years later, justice still held. The betrayers remained imprisoned while their intended victim continued saving lives. Good had proven more ruthless than evil, more patient than greed, more powerful than corruption. Clayton Douglas had made sure of that, transforming personal vengeance into lasting change. His story became more than just justice served. It became a testament to turning betrayal's wounds into wisdom, pain into protection, and darkness into dawn. The predators who tried to kill him sat in separate cells, growing old with their regrets, while Clayton Douglas continued his life's work, now with his son beside him, their humanitarian missions protected by systems born from the ashes of betrayal. Evil had tried to use good as its cover. Instead, good had proven the more formidable force. The price of betrayal had been paid in full, and its lessons would protect others for generations to come. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.